Imagine this, for over half a century, the T-72 and its kin stood as unbreakable giants of steel, thundering across vast battlefields like unstoppable waves crashing on Europe's shores. But now, shattered hulks litter the Ukrainian landscape, their once mighty forms reduced to twisted relics. What hidden curse has turned Russia's armored pride into roadside ghosts? 347 characters, in the shadow of that fall, let's uncover the heart of the storm. The T-Series tanks, born from Soviet dreams of dominance, embodied raw power, low-slung beasts built for swift, overwhelming advances. Picture the ground trembling under their tracks, the sharp scent of diesel hanging heavy in the air. Yet, deep into the conflict in Ukraine, that invincible image crumbles. Thousands of these machines lie broken, a catastrophe echoing through history. Why? Not from simple mistakes in the field or untrained hands at the controls. No. It's a deeper doom. The whole idea behind Russian armor has become a relic, outdated in ways that scream failure. Three relentless forces collide here, a deadly flaw etched into every Soviet design, a new wave of smart, uneven warfare tech, and a grinding battle of losses where factories can't keep up with the front's furious pace. This war, it's a proving ground for tomorrow's fights, where simple gadgets outsmart costly behemoths. Rhetorical punch, can you hear the shift? The mighty main battle tank, once a game-changer, now sits as a prize too easy to claim. But how did it all go so wrong from the very start? Building on that unraveling legacy. Early war footage floods our screens, tanks with tops sheared off, their upper parts flung like discarded toys, revealing a core weakness that chills the spine. Feel the acrid smoke rising, the metallic tang biting the nose? This isn't surface trouble. The true Achilles heel hides in the DNA of Russian engineering, forged over decades on a risky bargain. It's no slip in upkeep or battlefield moves, it's a flaw in the guiding vision itself. That vision favored a squat shape and endless production lines over protecting lives inside or easy fixes later. Back in the 1970s, when the T-72 first rolled out, Soviet minds chased a vision, a tank tinier, nimbler to hide than anything from the West. Driven by leaders like Khrushchev and Brezhnev, their plan was a tidal wave of machines surging into Europe, numbers crushing all. Western forces? They bet on keeping skilled operators alive through long hauls, seeing tanks as treasures worth saving. Soviets? They treated them like tools, discard and rebuild fast. That mindset birthed a edge in stats. The T-72 hunkers at just 2.19 meters tall, dwarfing the enemy 1 Abrams at 2.39, or the Leopard 2 at 2.48. That sneaky outline? Perfect for digging in, dodging eyes in a massive clash. But inside, oh, the squeeze. Cramped quarters drain energy, turn every shift into a sweaty ordeal, unlike the roomy Western rides. To fight the tight fit, they slashed weight wherever possible. Enter the autoloader, a clever swap for one crew spot. Letting 3 souls handle the beast and shrink the whole frame. It worked for slimming down, but at what price? The real sting hides in the guts, warping how crews move and think. And that loader choice? It birthed the tank's worst nightmare. Ammo for the big gun sits in a spinning rack below the turret and team area, 22 to 40 explosive rounds, plus their fiery boosters, all coiled like a trap. To stay low, they crammed it there, turning the tank into a powder keg, one spark from doom. This curse threads through Russia's lineup, from the old T-64, the common T-80, to the fancy T-90. A hit on the fin sides or underbelly ignites it all, a chain of blasts no one stops. Charges light up, the sealed space turns to roaring inferno heat you can almost feel scorching the air. Pressure surges wild, blasting out the turret's weak seal. Up goes the 12-ton cap, hurled high in a spectacle that marks total ruin. Western ways? They guard lives first. Abrams and Leopard store shots in a safe rear bulge, walled off with vents that shove blasts away, sparing the team. Crews bail, rigs get patched. Height trades a bit for second chances. Hit a Russian? It's over, gone. Hit an Abrams? Often just stalled, survivors slip free. For Russia, the toll doubles, machines lost forever, a black hole in supplies. Worse, irreplaceable experts vanish in a flash. Old tanks refill stocks, but battle-hardened minds? priceless, and their bleed weakens every linked strike. That old risk, fine for Cold War clashes of titans, now meets a sharper foe, tech that slices through blindly. But what if the battlefield itself evolved beyond steel dreams? From that doctrinal divide, the pain deepens as new tools expose every crack. Sensors hum, cheap swarms buzz, electronic fog blinds the old ways. Early on, Western guided missiles flipped the script, handing Ukraine a crushing edge. The Javelin from America, or the Enlon from British-Swedish smarts, shredded thick fronts like paper. The Javelin's trick? It soars high then dives on the roof's soft skin, mere inches of shield. Bypasses the beefed-up nose the Soviets loved. Its dual blast shred add-on defenses too. Russia's relict or malachite layers on the T-90M? Fancy once, now fooled as the first pop clears for the killer follow-up. The mind game? Huge. Lock on heat, fire, and flee, seekers chase without watch, letting shooters duck fast. Roads, woods, city corners turn deadly hides, shredding column pushes. Every shadow a threat in this uneven dance. But missiles start the hurt, what endless nightmare keeps the pressure on? Tying back to those ambush shadows, the real chokehold comes from bargain bin flyers, first-person view drones, dirt cheap at $500, less than one shell. They prowl non-stop, tiny hunters in the sky. Fronts turn glass clear for 10 to 20 clicks, stealing surprise maneuvers. No more blind rolls. Operators pick cripples over kills, snap tracks, scar engines, blind sights, or bend barrels. Breakdown? They pounce, strand the prize for bigger hits later. Volume overwhelms, 50,000 launched monthly, swarming smart and wild. Russian armor, frozen, outmatched. But can factories outrun this fire? The attrition war grinds on, output lagging the blaze. Cheap tech reigns, heavy iron falls. The T-Series era? Fading fast. What twist waits next in this lab of war? Continuing from the deep flaws in Russian tank design, where vulnerability stems from a core engineering compromise prioritizing low profile over crew safety, a fateful choice has turned these machines into ticking traps. Imagine roaring engines echoing across frozen battlefields, the acrid stench of smoke and diesel fueling the chaos. What secret weakness lurked within the heart of Soviet tanks, one that doomed crews to fiery graves while enemies whispered victory? In the icy grip of an unyielding doctrine, Soviet engineers unleashed a beast disguised as a weapon. Back in the 1970s, when the T-72 rumbled onto the scene, Soviet minds dreamed of a tank smaller, lighter, snugger than NATO giants. A post-World War II creed, the Khrushchev-Brezhnev ethos, demanded unstoppable waves crashing into Europe. Swarming hordes over sheer numbers. This wasn't just steel, it was philosophy. Where Western forces shielded precious crews for long hauls, Soviets saw tanks as disposable cogs, replaceable, forget the flesh inside. Little wonder the T-72 hugged the ground, a mere 2.19 meters high, dwarfing the 2.39 of the M1 Abrams. Or the 2.48 of Germany's Leopard 2. That flat profile? Camouflage in Europe's vastness. Yet, squeeze those cramped interiors. Sweat-slick grips on levers. Fatigue clawing at mines. Operations harder, foe spotting easier. NATO crews basked in roomy cabins, arms free, eyes sharp. How did Soviets cheat fate? By ditching the fourth man. An automatic loader spun miracles. 3 souls now steered this metal brute. Volume shrank, but at what price? Pauses linger. Emotions swell as hidden costs emerge. Now, delving deeper, the autoloader's curse unleashed a carousel nightmare beneath the turret. Why did prioritizing compactness forge a prison of explosives, exploding in flames that humiliate Russian might and stuns the world? Revisiting the engineering trade-off, where low silhouette trumped human life, the autoloader carved out crew space. But oh, the silent killer it birthed. Picture a ring of doom, 22 to 40 high-explosive shells, volatile propellants, coiled like serpents under the turret. Under commander's feet. To keep height low, this bomb-laced heart beat directly below. Awaiting the spark. This vicious circle haunts Russia's fleet, T-64's legacy. T-80's plight. Even the T-90's pride. Armor thin as paper on flanks. Bottoms beckoning doom. One crack, one pierce. Ignition roars through the chamber. Propellants detonate in a frenzy. Hull seals pressure like a volcano. Weak turret rings shatter. 12-ton lids erupt, jack-in-the-box horror. Backfire blackened air reeking of ruin. Fragments scattering, thunderclap booms drumming war songs. Crews vaporized in instants. Turrets soaring skyward, mocking Russia's steel empire. Will this genetic flaw end their armored dreams in ash? Tense silence builds. Hearts race as contrasts sharpen. In stunned aftermath, recall the explosion's fury from that fateful carousel placement. Yet, amid the national disaster, Western tanks stand tall. Why do NATO designs save lives where Russians perish, twisting the war's cruel narrative? Shifting to stark survival doctrines. NATO elites armored their ammo and turret rear. Bulwark barriers. Blowout sheets venting blasts outward, upward. Away from the living. Abrams crippled, crews flee, vehicles recuperable. Mobility maims, not massacre. Russians? Jackpots of loss. Tanks? Irreplaceable wrecks. Capital bled dry. Strategic hemorrhage. Doctrinal clash exposed. Where Soviets gamble on quantity, underestimating human essence. Tragedies etching indelible scars. Feels like armor peeling under fire. Smells of charred comrades. Sounds of cascading defeats. As crew skill evaporates, can Moscow's edge survive the attrition mill? Echoes fade. Plot thickens with technological tides. Against this structural catastrophe, an asymmetric storm brews. High-tech hunters zeroing in. Why have cheap drones and missiles annihilated tank superiority, humiliating Russia's armored colossus in a shocking global spectacle? From war's dawn, advanced invaders flooded Ukraine. Western marvels, MJM-148 Javelin from the USA. NLA-2 from UK-Swedish Forge. Top-down assaults, piercing roofs paper-thin. Bypassing slab fronts stressed in Soviet lore. Tandem blast shredding relict. Malachite ERA illusions. Aerotech rendered hollow chaff. Fire forget infrared hunters. Operators ghost away, survival spiking. Road dies to ambushes. Forests to death traps. Cities to morgues. Decentralized nightmares. Armored thrusts crippled. Asymmetric essence, concealed carnage, delivered remotely. Paralyzing psychology. Metal superiority inverted. Feel the sting of unseen eyes. Hear the whistle of descending death. Breathe the smoke of appended doctrines. As war's facts modernize, old beasts falter, / pauses intensify. Revelations unfold in relentless waves. Amid missile devastation, a drone deluge amplifies the kill. FPV kamikazes, $500 wonders, swarming relentlessly. How has this prolific tide of two-blanche terror battered Russian armor into submission, unveiling a warfare renaissance that exposes fatal flaws? Escalating beyond ATGM's early scares. Sustained siege from first-person view drones. Mini-missiles, army-priced. Persistent piñata punishers. 24/7 surveillance. 10-20-kilometer frontiers stripped bare. Maneuver illusions shattered. Hunts shift, mobility mutilate. Tracks severed. Engines wrecked. Optics obliterated. Barrels bent. Breakdowns doom. Drones descend, vultures guaranteeing finish. 50,000 monthly unleashed. Swarm strategies. Decentralized dazzles. Overwhelming waves. High-value prizes penned. Artillery amplification. Follow-up fury. Volume vertigo, convention warfare convoluted. Sounds of buzzing harbingers. Buzzing of motors. Cracks of impacts. Tactile tremors of surrenders. Smells of expended explosives. This laboratory exposes heavy metals obsolescence. Cheap tech's dominion. Can entrenched powers adapt or crumble under amplification? / climax approaches. Legacy teeters on the brink. As losses mount in Ukraine's crucible. Unrecoverable machines. Irreparable horrors. Question lingers, is the T-Series myth shattered irreparably, pushing armor into extinction? Envision burning hulks as war monuments. Feel the heat, hear the groans, is this the epitaph for steel titans? The end draws near. A battlefield reversal that humbles empires. Who survives this technological gauntlet? The design flaw at the heart of Russian tanks turns them into deadly ticking time bombs. Within their compact structures, a carousel holding 22 to 40 high-explosive shells and volatile propellant charges is nestled directly beneath the turret and crew compartment. To maintain a low profile, engineers placed this dangerous storage ring close to the crew's living space, making the tank an unpredictable explosive. When enemy fire breaches the thin side or bottom armor, it strikes this carousel, igniting a catastrophic chain reaction. Suddenly, the tank interior becomes a high-pressure furnace, with flames and fumes building instantly. The enormous pressure forces the blast to escape through the weakest point, the turret ring. The result? Explosive chaos as the turret, weighing 12 tons, is violently torn free and hurled skyward like a missile. This horrifying jack-in-the-box effect has become a brutal signature of Russian armored failures, signaling the immediate destruction of the vehicle and the loss of its crew beneath the smoking wreckage. Contrast this with NATO designs, where crew safety takes precedence. Tanks like the Abrams and Leopard 2 store ammunition in armored compartments at the rear of the turret. These compartments are sealed off by thick bulkheads and equipped with blowout panels, lightweight barriers that fail outward to direct any explosion away from the crew. While an Abrams may still be disabled after a hit, its crew often survives, able to escape or be rescued. It's a trade-off, accept a slightly higher profile for greatly increased survivability and vehicle recovery potential. For Russian tanks, a successful strike often means total destruction. The entire vehicle is lost, assets are irreparably consumed, and the harsh reality hits home, expert crews are sacrificed in an instant. This structural vulnerability, once tolerable in Cold War battles, now commands the battlefield where technological superiority renders Russian armor obsolete. How many more tanks will be lost before this fundamental flaw is finally recognized? But the story doesn't end here, because the new threats transforming warfare today are shifting the entire battlefield. In the modern fog of war, precision-guided missiles, such as the revolutionary Javelin, have turned armor into a game of shadows and secrets. Top attack profiles climb high into the sky before diving down to strike the tank's thinnest armor, its roof. The sight of a missile gliding silently, the faint hum in the air, the moment of impact, these are the new nightmare scenarios Russian tanks face. The layered explosive reactive armor, once considered state-of-the-art, now stands vulnerable against tandem warheads that can easily neutralize these protections. Meanwhile, low-cost, high-tech drones revolutionize the battlefield, miniature machines armed with tiny yet deadly payloads. As they swarm across the front lines, they pinpoint weak spots, tracks, optics, main guns, and deliver crippling blows. An average drone costs less than a single tank shell but can disable a heavily armored vehicle in seconds. Over 50,000 of these tiny assassins are deployed each month, creating a relentless, invisible threat that keeps Russian armor on the defensive. This technological tide brings chaos to traditional armored tactics. Instead of waiting for a decisive engagement, defenders strike swiftly and often from concealed positions. The battlefield transforms into a web of traps, where disruption means defeat. The question lingers, can classical tank warfare survive in this era of electronic warfare, precision missiles, and swarming drones? Or are we witnessing the twilight of the mighty armored giants? The stakes have never been higher, and the future of armored combat hangs in delicate balance. What will happen next? Will these new war machines render the entire concept of traditional tank battles outdated? Or will cunning tactics and technological breakthroughs turn the tide once more? The story is far from over, because beneath the smoke and steel, a new era of warfare is quietly unfolding. From what we've explored, Russian tanks suffer a crippling flaw. A hit often means total destruction, while Western counterparts like the Abrams let crews escape alive. This flaw leads to massive material and human losses, draining Russia's military might exponentially. Now, the deeper cause emerges, a battlefield revolution exploiting this weakness. Is your prized armored force just expensive scrap metal? Gone are the days of heavy steel clashing. Today, the fight is electronic, precise, and terrifyingly accessible. In Ukraine, Russian armor meets a nightmare kill chain. Early in the invasion, advanced Western missiles flood in. The MGEF FM-148, Javelin from America, and the NLAW from Britain and Sweden, devastate with unstoppable force. They ignore thick frontal armor entirely. Imagine a soldier firing from cover. The missile soars up hundreds of feet. It plummets onto the tank's roof. There, the hull is paper-thin, bare inches of steel. No wonder Soviet designers focused on hiding. But the Javelin's tandem warhead shatters reactive armor. Russia's state-of-the-art systems, like Relikt or the new Malachite on the T-90mm, once invincible, now fail. The first charge explodes ERA tiles. The second punches through. Psychological terror ripples out. Fighter Amphiget design uses infrared seekers. Lock onto the thermal heat. Fire and flee. The acrid stench of propellant lingers. The echoing boom rocks the air. Under every tree, road, or ruin, death lurks. Asymmetric warfare humiliates the invader. Can mass production save them? Or is Russia's armor era over? The humble drone twists the tale. Cheap as a meal, these first-person view kamikaze machines swarm. Barely $500 each, cheaper than one tank shell. They create a relentless threat. Front lines glow transparent, 10 to 20 kilometers deep. No more hidden maneuvers for Russia. Drones shift tactics from total kills to crippling damage. Tracks snap. Engines seize. Optics shatter. That distinctive crack of track linkages breaking feels like defeat underfoot. The exhaust's bitter smoke chokes. If a tank halts, drones strike, precise, merciless. Over 50,000 deployed monthly by Ukraine. Swarm attacks overwhelm defenses. High-value assets become stranded prey. What unexpected edge saves the underdog? But wait, a glimmer of reality. Russia pushes back with jammers and counters war. Yet, attrition grinds on. Manufacturing can't keep up. A historic shift unfolds. Cheap tech beats million-dollar behemoths. Crews feel the tremor of incessant drone hums. Is your invincible tank just a death trap now? The wheel of war turns against you. What secret revolution humiliates the armored giant next? Those smoking husks could write the epitaph. Can experience reduce initiativa and accessibility unsustainable? Costs soar beyond bounds. As factories struggle, the frontline feast continues. But an industrial twist awaits, beneath the surface. Is mass production the villain or the hero? Scratch that myth. In the cold calculus of war, every destroyed tank jets financial ruin. Billion-dollar losses mount. Yet, the true agony lies in the irreplaceable. Trained crews vanish in fiery blasts. Their screams echo in the ether. Tactile panic grips, hands fumbling levers, sweat-soaking uniforms. The psychological toll crushes morale. Ammunition carousels erupt like trapped beasts. Pressure builds, bends through weak points. That jack-in-the-box eruption scatters steel debris. Smoldering metal and singed air mark the grave. NATO-designed shield crews, recover vehicles. Russia sacrifices all. Humiliation burns hotter than any explosion. Were they blind to the flaw? Or arrogantly tied to doctrine? Now, the mirror reflects defeat. Superior tech exposes the cost. Asymmetry isn't just a tactic, it's a hammer. Can Russia adapt before it's too late? The answer might shatter more than armor. In this merciless lab, cheap equals lethal. Your affordable killer drones redefine battle. 50,000 a month deploy like insects. Swarm coordination decimates. Mobility kills chain into full destruction. Artillery hammers the stranded. A symphony of cracks and booms. Dust plumes rise, gunpowder's sulfur bite on the tongue. Transparent fields deny cover. Maneuver warfare? A relic. Stationary tanks? Targets. Tracks grind to halt, vulnerable as sitting ducks. That unexpected vulnerability turns the tide. Could countermeasures tip the scale? Looming electronic warfare hints. Jamming tactics disrupt swarms. But volume persists. Russia scrambles defenses. Nets and shots guns flail. Effectiveness wanes. Scale tips against the factory floor. Production lags destruction's pace. A perverse flood. Capacity strained to bones. Every rebuild underscores failure. Attrition's cruel math, losses outrun gains. Is this the end for armored dominance? Emotions fray, exhaustion's weight, losses sting. But a counter-punch brews. Technological leaps beckon. Passive defenses evolve. ERA iterations strengthen. Ammunition safe storage experiments. Yet, Ukraine's ingenuity counters. Drones adapt, evade. Kill chains refine. The cat and mouse intensifies. Sounds of buzzing menaces. Vibrations of strikes. Smells of burned earth. Can doctrine overhaul save them? Or is the flaw eternal? Discover how a simple design choice dooms empires. Feel the shock as steel giants tumble. What humiliation awaits the pride of arms? But brace, a resurrection whispers. Is Russia's tank not dead yet? Adaptive tactics emerge. Cruelest concepts push boundaries. Unmanned monsters rise. Teasing survivability without souls. Ethical quakes roar. Yet, pragmatism wins wars. With Yak-38 VTOL, no, wait, focus on armor. But parallels in Vertol innovation. Wait, tanks reign. Character count approximated at 1850 for rewritten section, maintaining essence. Decades of Western military dominance made tanks a symbol of unstoppable power. These steel giants, the backbone of mechanized forces, seemed invincible, until now. Imagine a battlefield littered with thousands of burning wrecks, metal fragments sparkling under the fierce sun. How could these icons of force suddenly become vulnerable? What secrets are hiding behind their once impenetrable armor? The story begins with Russia's pride, the legendary T-Series tanks. For over 50 years, they represented Soviet strength, a low-profile fortress designed to dominate European plains. But beneath that sleek silhouette lay a fatal flaw that would doom them in modern combat. You see, these tanks were built for a different war, a war of numbers, not precision. They prioritized size, mass production, and crew safety, but at a terrible cost. Flashback to the 1970s. Imagine the engineers laboring in dim workshops, their hands greasy and tense. They crafted a tiny, stealthy design with an automatic loader to save space. This was innovative, a small, efficient machine. Yet, silent danger lurked inside. The ammunition storage, a carousel nestled beneath the turret, was a ticking time bomb. Any hit to that fragile ring triggered catastrophic explosions, tearing turret and chassis apart in a matter of seconds. Witnesses of battle report the deafening roar, the fiery bloom, and the violent toss of the turret skyward, a brutal, spectacular collapse of what was once meant to be unstoppable. In opposition, modern NATO tanks like the Abrams and Leopard 2 prioritized crew survival. Their ammunition stored in armored compartments at the rear, protected by safety features designed to direct explosion forces outward. These tanks might be hit, but their crews often survive, escape, and fight again. Meanwhile, Russian tanks, with their structural weakness, met a different fate. Every successful strike meant total destruction, no salvage, no second chances. Human loss was devastating, for experienced drivers and gunners were lost in seconds, erasing years of training. The battlefield evolved. Outdated armor faced new threats, advanced missiles with pinpoint accuracy, capable of attacking from above where thick steel was weakest. Picture a missile climbing hundreds of feet, then diving to strike the roof of a tank, the armor so thin there it's almost a trap. These weapons, like the feared Javelin missile, render surface defenses almost useless. Its tandem warhead effortlessly defeats reactive protection, breaking through what was once considered unbeatable. And the psychological toll was staggering. The sound of the missile's launch, the heat signature flickering on thermal sights, these effects paralyze defenders. Every corner becomes a deadly ambush zone. The battlefield is no longer a place of open confrontation but a chessboard of hidden enemies, waiting to strike from shadows invisible to traditional sensors. The new war relies on cheap, relentless technology, tiny drones that carry out lightning-fast attacks. Imagine a small flying device, less than the cost of a single tank shell, zipping through the air. It seeks out vulnerable parts of the tank, tracks, optics, or the main gun. If a tank stalls, or tries to hide in the debris, the drone finds it and disables it. Think of the front lines as a swarm of relentless insects, over 50,000 of these tiny assassins deployed monthly by Ukrainian forces, creating chaos and confusion among Russian columns. Swarm tactics overwhelm even the most sophisticated defenses, forcing Russian armor to retreat or be destroyed. As the war rages, the once mighty tanks are now fighting a new kind of fight. Precision, technology, and sheer numbers have turned the battlefield into a game of shadows and illusions. Could this be the end of the era of the Lion of the Plains? Or is there still hope for these steel giants to survive? The truth remains hidden beneath the smoke and fire, but one thing is certain, old methods are no longer enough. The future belongs to those who adapt, or perish in the flames of revelation. The battlefield has become a relentless war of unseen enemies. Do you feel the ground shaking beneath you? Hear the distant whine of low-flying drones, tiny specks of death moving silently but accurately. Over 50,000 of these miniature killers are unleashed each month by Ukrainian forces, their numbers overwhelming, their tactics sophisticated. Swarms of small flying objects attack from every direction, coordinated in deadly harmony, aiming to disable even the most heavily armored targets. But how do they do it? How can tiny, inexpensive drones break through the steel giants once thought unbreakable? As the assault intensifies, some of these drones are evolving further, AI-powered, capable of recognizing targets without relying on GPS signals. They employ computer vision, hunting for tanks even when communication channels are jammed, when electronic defenses flicker uselessly. Meanwhile, the use of loitering munitions like the Russian-made Lancet adds another brutal layer of pressure. These munitions target support vehicles and artillery units, choking the logistics that keep tanks alive. Every part of the supply chain, every vital support element, comes under attack, like a relentless virus spreading chaos across the battlefield. It's clear that Russian tanks are vulnerable not just because of battlefield tactics, but due to a fundamental flaw in their design and doctrine. While NATO tanks like the Abrams and Leopard 2 have integrated active protection systems, advanced systems that detect, intercept, and destroy incoming threats, Russian tanks rely heavily on outdated passive and reactive armor. Their indigenous systems, like the Arena and Afghanistan, remain limited, hampered by high costs, logistical chaos, and sanctions that block essential electronic components. Active protection systems are game changers. Using radar and millimeter-wave sensors, they spot incoming projectiles, rocket-propelled grenades, guided missiles, and launch tiny counter-munitions. These interceptors destroy threats before they hit, turning tanks from vulnerable targets into nearly invulnerable fortresses. But Russian tanks are still mostly dependent on explosive reactive armor, tiles that explode to disrupt the shaped charges of enemy weapons. This old Cold War tactic was effective against older threats but is hopelessly outdated today. Why has Russia clung to this failing strategy? Because it represents an entire doctrine, one that views tanks as expendable assets, quick to replace and easy to discard. Meanwhile, modern warfare demands a different approach, a holistic defense that combines active sensors, interceptors, and advanced armor. Without these, Russian tanks are nothing more than sitting targets. Every hit, every explosion tears apart equipment and kills experienced crews, draining the military's human resources. So how long can this reliance on outdated tech last? Can a nation's pride withstand the relentless evolution of modern warfare? The answer teeters on a knife's edge, as the battlefield demands adaptation at every turn. The future of armored combat hangs in the balance, dictated not just by firepower, but by innovation, resilience, and the ability to evolve beyond the old paradigms. We've seen how the Soviet doctrine sacrificed crew safety for low profiles and mass production. Reactive armor's explosive tiles once shielded against old threats, but tandem warheads like the Javelin shattered that defense. Now, picture the battlefield stench, scorched metal mixing with diesel fumes, as drones dive relentlessly. Imagine this shock. Is Russia's mighty armor doomed, not by big battles, but tiny drones costing less than a meal? Yes, and it's oddly poetic. These FPV drones plunge vertical dives onto the tank's thin roof, a spot even Russian ERA can't touch. Reactive explosive armor fails spectacularly there. Explosive tiles react to threats from the sides or front, but a roof attack? It's like a thief sneaking through an unguarded window, no disruption at all. The problem runs deeper than sanctions. Russian procurement missed the map of new wars completely. They didn't foresee cheap, accurate munitions shattering their low-profile designs. Imagine the crunch of drone strikes echoing across fields, unseen operators far away. Recall NATO's safe ammo storage, survivable crews, recoverable tanks. Russians? One-hit cascades to turret-launching explosions, crews incinerated in an inferno of searing heat and acrid smoke. Why? Ammo carousels ring the turret, turning tanks into powder kegs under crew seats. This flaw amplifies now. Integrated active protection systems? Largely absent. Russian tanks are sitting ducks in rallies of precision. Passive robotics yield catastrophic kills, not mere scratches. Every strike echoes the T-Series fatal legacy, from T-64 to T-90. Their doctrine clings to outdated ERA, spurning advanced counter-munitions or sensors. It's the last spike in the coffin. What twist forces this? Russian electronic warfare, once heralded as world-class, falters against modern swarms. Systems like the R-330 or Z-Aegis jam broad signals but drag heavy, vulnerable to artillery pounds. Individual tanks? Outmatched. Crude field fixes, overhead cages or improvised rail mangles, jostle on tops, meant to detonate drones early. They fail often. Feel the added weight straining tracks over muddy trenches, transmissions groaning under load. Movement slows, tires cruise. These welds bar the rear but laughably miss crucial spots, exposing weaknesses. Desperation welds on these eyesores, story after desperate story. It screams the divide between Moscow's boasts and brutal reality. Smell the fear in hasty repairs, soldiers sweating under welding sparks. But here's the humiliating twist, Ukraine's swarm tactics win daily. Many drones coordinate orbits, overwhelming. Russian armor hides no more. Why can't massive EW catch up to $500 explosives? The fatal flaw isn't in metal, it's in mindset, echoing Cold War ghosts. Will Russia adapt, or watch their steel fleet rust into history? The next drone strike could shatter that illusion forever. What secrets hide in their procurement files that kept them blind this long? The battlefield of modern war is a place where steel giants once soared with dominance. Imagine a time when the sight of a mighty tank rolling across the plains meant unstoppable force, a symbol of national strength and power. These behemoths, crafted from steel and fire, seemed invincible, until recently. But now, a catastrophe is unfolding that threatens to erase their legacy forever. In the chaos of Ukraine, the image of the legendary Russian tanks has shattered like glass. Decades of triumphs are crumbling into smoldering wreckage, burnt hulks scattered across open fields, silent witnesses to a devastating collapse. The sight is shocking, tanks torn apart, turrets blown sky-high, crews lost in a hail of enemy fire. What once symbolized unbreakable power is now a graveyard of broken metal. This isn't just a setback, it's a historic disaster rewriting the rules of warfare. Why are Russian tanks failing so spectacularly? Could such a proud tradition be ending so abruptly? The answer lies deep within their design, a deadly flaw baked into their core ever since the Cold War. These tanks carry a secret vulnerability, hidden from view but fatal in battle. Because of a 50-year-old choice, they resemble ticking time bombs. And with modern technology turning the tide, their days are numbered. The root of this tragedy begins with a fundamental decision made years ago. The designers aimed to create low-profile, easily hidden tanks, compact and quick to deploy. This was driven by a strategy to surprise and defeat NATO forces by overwhelming them with numbers. But such clever tactics came with a hidden price. These tanks were built cramped, with less space for crew comfort. To compensate, engineers installed an automatic loader, squeezing ammunition into a tiny carousel beneath the turret. Great idea, until the enemy shoot. Because of this choice, a single shell strike can turn these armored behemoths into fiery death traps. Hidden in the carousel, high explosive shells, dangerous and volatile, become deadly when hit. A shot penetrating the side can trigger a chain reaction. The explosion ignites the propellant stores, creating a blazing furnace inside the tank. The interior pressure skyrockets. And then, the nightmare, the infamous jack-in-the-box effect. The turret, weighing 12 tons, is violently torn skyward, flown into the air like a shattered doll. It's a horrific sight, metal debris raining down, crew members swallowed by the inferno, the tank's remains consumed by flames. It's a sign, these tanks are walking catastrophes. Contrast this with Western designs like the Abrams or Leopard 2. Their ammunition is stored separately, protected by armored bulkheads that vent explosions safely away from their crews. When struck, their crews often survive, escaping while the wreckage burns. For Russian tanks, a hit is a death sentence. The entire vehicle, with all its crew, vanishes in a deadly fireball. Russia's reliance on outdated design is exacting a ruthless toll, unrecoverable losses, shattered units, and irreplaceable human lives. These tanks are not just metal, they are human sacrifices in the battlefield chaos. But a simple flaw isn't the only problem. The modern battlefield has shifted dramatically. It's no longer just heavy steel clashing in direct combat. Now, tiny electronic systems and precision-guided missiles decide victory or defeat. Advanced anti-tank weapons like the American Javelin and British Swift feature a deadly top-attack profile. Launched from afar, they strike where armor is thinnest, the roof, bypassing traditional defenses. These missiles are especially effective against Russian tanks, which are now sitting ducks. The psychological impact is just as lethal. These missile systems create a new fear, an invisible eye watching every step, every movement. Soldiers hide behind cover, afraid to move, because the tiniest mistake invites destruction. And it's not just missiles. Swarms of cheap drones, costing less than a single tank shell, now hunt and disable valuable units. Their miniature cameras provide perfect vision, hunting for targets 10 to 20 kilometers away. They aim not for outright destruction but for immobilization, wrecking tracks, damaging optics, destroying guns. These drone attacks are relentless, overwhelming Russian defenses, turning countryside roads and urban streets into deadly ambush zones. Russian tanks, designed for frontal power and close combat, now struggle against this unseen enemy. Their once mighty presence is reduced to sitting targets, waiting to be struck, trapped in a new form of warfare that exploits their weaknesses. And the devastation is staggering. Over 3,000 tanks lost, an entire pre-war fleet wiped out in just months. Vast Soviet stockpiles, once believed to be endless, are nearly depleted, many of them outdated relics like the T-62 and T-55. These aging machines, built in a different era, are ill-equipped to face modern anti-tank systems and electronic warfare. Their engines falter, their sights are outdated, and their armor offers little protection against today's deadly missiles and drones. Every destroyed tank chips away at Russia's military strength. It's not just a loss of machinery, it's a loss of experience, skill, and confidence. Veteran crews are vanishing, replaced by less experienced soldiers operating obsolete equipment. The very fabric of their armored forces unravels with each fallen vehicle, leaving behind a hollow shell of what once was a formidable force. The sobering truth is this: Russia's once proud armored might faces an existential crisis. Technologically superior systems, inspired tactics, and a relentless drone war have turned their heavy steel assets into relics of a bygone era. Their design flaws, combined with modern precision strike weapons, leave them exposed and vulnerable, unable to adapt fast enough to the brutal realities of contemporary combat. Is this the end of Russia's armored legacy? As the battlefield evolves, it becomes painfully clear, old steel cannot keep pace with a new wave of war. The once mighty tanks, symbols of strength, are now fragile shadows of themselves, ticking time bombs waiting for the next devastating strike. The future of armored warfare is being rewritten right now, and the demise of the T-Series might be just the beginning. Imagine the eerie silence of a battlefield after artillery barrage, the acrid smell of gunpowder lingering in the air, the cold metal of a tank turret under your fingertips. But what if I told you that Russia's mighty T-Series tanks aren't just outdated relics, they're being obliterated on sight, turning their invasion into a graveyard of steel coffins? This vulnerability isn't just a minor hitch, it's a catastrophic flaw that humiliates their entire doctrine, proving Western tech triumphs over Soviet might in a twist that changes war forever. Can you believe tanks designed for overwhelming force are now sitting ducks, stripped bare by sanctions and drones, leaving crews to flee in horror? From the last discussion, we saw how Russian tanks' outdated optics and engines crumble under the strain, especially with jerry-rigged armor, thrusting untrained crews into hostile zones without backup, where every breakdown feels like a death knell. The rattle of faulty gears grinds against the roar of explosions, the stench of diesel overpowering the fresh earth. But this isn't isolated. These tanks face immediate ruin upon hitting the front lines, draining Russia's armored strength like blood from a wound. Reports confirm thousands lost, creating an irreversible slide in numbers, exposing a doctrine that's obsolete. Why do these behemoths, meant to dominate, now explode on impact, turning trained soldiers into irreplaceable ghosts? The answer lies in a strategic vacuum, a hemorrhage that cripples supply chains and innovation alike. The creak of a tank's hatch slamming shed echoes as crews climb in, unaware that their ride might be a one-way ticket. Sensory overload hits, the claustrophobic heat inside, the faint hum of electronics failing. But sanctions have turned production dreams into nightmares, strangling factories like Uralvagonzavod. Western bans block vital parts, think thermal imaging from France's Valais, precision tools from Germany, microchips for fire controls, leaving Russia scavenging civilian scraps or routing through shadowy intermediaries. This spirals costs, inflating expenses by nearly double, and weakens everything from the T-90M onward. These subpar components, yanked from household gadgets, cause breakdowns, rendering vehicles unreliable in combat. Do you feel the irony? A superpower reduced to patchwork engineering, where low-grade chips spark failures, evading true military standards in a desperate bid to keep up. In a twist no one saw coming, this tactical erosion isn't just economic, it's doctrinal humiliation, revealing Soviet-era compromises as fatal in today's precision strikes. Innovation stagnates in the Russian military-industrial complex, unable to upgrade, shackling tanks to flaws from decades past. Regulators flicker erratically, surges interrupt the calm, the sour tang of overheated circuits invading the air. Armed with makeshift electronics, these machines falter where they should punch through, proving firepower alone won't save a philosophy built on expendable lives. But wait, could the rise of simple drones flip the script entirely, overwhelming even the most revamped models? That cliffhanger lingers, hinting at a battlefield where numbers mean nothing without quality. The combined arms failures that crippled their advances now demand a reckoning. What happens when engines can't outrun the past, leaving entire formations trapped in stigma? Decades of dominance defined Russia's armored might. The T-series tanks stood as symbols of Soviet power, massive, unstoppable, and ready to crush European planes. Their low profiles and brute force embodied Moscow's ability to project strength. But everything changed in just 2 years. The image of invincibility shattered into blazing fragments across battle-scarred fields. A catastrophe of such scale that it didn't just set back a military campaign, it marked an irreversible collapse. The once proud cornerstone of the Russian army now lies broken, burned, and abandoned. How could a tank designed for the Cold War become so utterly obsolete? What forces have turned these steel giants into fragile targets? The answer lies beyond isolated mistakes or poor training. The entire philosophy behind Russian armor has become irrelevant. A perfect storm of 3 deadly factors collided: flaws baked into design, technological advances that leave these tanks vulnerable, and an economy that can no longer keep pace with destruction. This isn't just failure, it's a historic disaster. Imagine the battlefield: sound of engines roaring, the smell of burnt oil, the tactile shock of metal against flesh. Sparks fly as projectiles pierce armor, and the haunting image of tanks exploding in flames haunts every side's mind. The once formidable Russian tanks now stand as weights of decay, fragments of a bygone era. Why? Because the core design choices of Soviet tanks prioritized stealth and cheap mass production over crew safety. Since the Kosovo-era T-72 in the 1970s, engineers aimed for smaller, more concealed combat vehicles. They added automatic loaders to reduce crew size, sacrificing internal space and safety in the process. The ammunition storage, located in a volatile carousel beneath the turret, became a ticking time bomb. A single hit can trigger a catastrophic explosion. The notorious jack-in-the-box effect: when the turret violently vaults skyward, has become a grim symbol of Russian armored failure. NATO tanks, by contrast, prioritize crew survival with armored compartments and blowout panels designed to direct the blast away. Russian tanks, designed for quick replacement, often mean complete destruction and the loss of experienced crews, irreplaceable mines lost in seconds. But the real danger isn't just in design flaws. It's in the technological battlefield shift. Advanced anti-tank missiles, like the Javelin, strike from above, bypassing thick frontal armor. Their top attack profile and tandem warheads render old reactive armor ineffective. Modern systems can disable a tank, leaving it stuck, vulnerable, useless, all while the crew is forced into a death trap. Moreover, cheap, small drones, costing less than a single shell, have revolutionized combat. Thousands are launched monthly, creating persistent threats from all directions. These tiny weapons attack vulnerable areas, tracks, optics, guns, and paralyze even the newest tanks. Swarm tactics overwhelm defenses, turning once insurmountable armor into sitting ducks, easily taken out by coordinated drone strikes and artillery. Now, the Russian military faces an impossible reality. Their once mighty tanks are relics, technologically outmatched, doctrinally misguided, and poorly maintained. The industrial machinery that once supplied modern equipment is crippled by sanctions and economic isolation. Critical components, like thermal optics and precision microchips, are scarce or unreliable, forcing reliance on inferior alternatives. These make every vehicle less dependable, increasing the risk of breakdown and failure in the heat of battle. The result, a slow but inevitable destruction. The tank, once an armored spearhead, has become a symbol of strategic failure, a mobile pyre for crews sacrificed by design flaws and technological obsolescence. The current conflict isn't just a war of armies, it's a battle of systems, doctrines, and innovation. Moscow's failure to adapt has turned its armored forces into increasingly vulnerable artillery, easily neutralized. This collapse signals a grim end to Russia's era of mass-produced, expendable armor. The decline isn't temporary, it's a clear indicator of waning global military power. The age of armored dominance has passed, replaced by precision, technology, and asymmetric tactics. To grasp how these modern advancements have shattered traditional tank warfare, examine the incredible success of the missile systems and drone tactics rewriting the rules of engagement. Witness how millions of tiny drones and sophisticated missiles expose the weaknesses of even the mightiest steel beasts. The downfall of Russia's armored legacy is no longer unforeseen, it's inevitable. The future belongs to those who adapt, innovate, and seize the technological advantage. The era of the Russian tank as a symbol of power is over, replaced by a new battlefield where intelligence, precision, and small, cheap weapons reign supreme.